Hey guys, what's going on? Thanks for tuning into the channel today. Today I'm going to talk about the BFL Okie division on Lake Eufaula, April 29th, 2023. I'm going to give you a breakdown of how my day went, exactly what went on, how I caught my fish. I only got 96th place. I had 4 pounds, 8 ounces. That was 96th place out of 153 boats. So not the finish I wanted, not the finish I thought I would get. I had a decent practice, but things changed. I'm going to talk about what changed and how to fix those the next time I go out, or if you're out there as well, I'm going to show you. Before I get to the video, if you guys would, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please become a subscriber. It's a great way to support the channel, and also like the videos. And if you got any comments, feel free to comment on the video and I'll comment back to you. Or if you have anything, any questions, anything like that, just comment and I'll get back with you. Okay, so I started practicing the weekend before, which I really hate doing because it always seems to be different than the tournament because it's a week ahead of time. So it's hard to keep up with the fish. And that was on April 22nd and April 23rd. So this first picture here, the red, this was the first area that I went to. And this ended up being my primary area in the tournament, which was Gaines Creek. And I caught 5 keepers on Saturday, which was April 22nd in there. And then the green area, that's the second area. That was Longtown. I only caught 1 keeper on Sunday in there. I went to another area about half the day and then came back into Longtown and caught 1 keeper out of there. So let's get to the second picture here. This is the red area. This is the first area, and this is Gaines Creek. So the red dots, that is where I caught keepers on a bladed jig with, it's a chartreuse and white bladed jig with a Zako trailer. I think it's a Zako or a Zako. It's a Gary Yamamoto Zako or a Zako. And I was throwing it in the white and chartreuse as well. And then the green dots, those were keepers that was caught on a 1.5 square bill in a red and orange crawl. I think it might be called Delta Crawl. Not exactly sure on the name of it. So I caught those fish on the chatterbait. I'll get into this later in the video as well, but I caught the fish on the chatterbait because the shad spawn was going on and there was shad all around me. So those bass were feeding, and that chatterbait is a feeding bite. And then I caught them on the 1.5 when the shad were not present, and those were also fish that were feeding, but they were feeding on the crawls, not the shad. So the third picture here, this is the green area, and this is up in Longtown. The red circle, that is where I caught the 1 keeper on. It was on a Bomber 6A, and it's another red-orange crawl. And then, I believe, yes. I think I jumped ahead there. Sorry, I'm going through my notes there, and I did them last night. So, let me get through here. Yeah, the third picture, the green area. Nope, that's where I'm trying to think here. Yeah, I caught 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's get into the fourth picture here, which was, I think, the third picture as well. That is the green area. Yes, sorry, I got it all mixed up there. So the third picture there, that is the green area, and that is the one I caught on the Bomber 6A on the red-orange crawl. And here is the video of everyone. That. Now you guys seen the video of that Bomber 6A red crawl. That was a feeding bite off of Main Lake Point, and there was no shad present at that time, so that's why I wasn't catching them on the chatterbait. I figured that out later there. So now let's get into the fifth picture. This was the practice on April 28th, 2023. Now, the red circle, this is the area that I was fishing right here. And it was kind of just up at a Gaines Creek, just up to the north. It was a little spawning pocket right there, kind of a spawning cove in there. And that is where I caught one in practice. I seen 2 of them cruising the day before the practice. The water temp had got up to 66, I do believe it was. And there was some cruisers up there, a second round of spawners, but they weren't locked on beds. They were just up there cruising the banks. I think I seen 6 of them, 6 or 7 of them actually up cruising the banks. But I would get up there if I got hung up shallow, throwing the bladed jig got hung up a lot up shallow, or the crankbait. When I'd go up there, I'd spook those, and I would also see them, but it was so difficult to see them because the water visibility was about 3 inches or less and under a foot pretty much everywhere on the lake that I went. But I would get up there and I would see those, but they weren't locked on beds. They were moving and they were getting out of the way, so they were just up there cruising, getting ready to make beds. So I went into this area later in the day. I think this fish was about 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, and I caught this one on a 2K Jigs 1/4 ounce Pro Zone shaky head with the Zoom 6-inch lizard and watermelon seed, and it had a chartreuse tail on it. Kind of old school on that, and I got that because I seen those fish that were moving around up there by the beds. So I found that out for any fish that was up there on the beds, hoping that water temp, because it didn't really get cold the night before the tournament. For some reason, the water dropped 4 degrees. So that pattern went away. And here is the video of the 3-pounder.
What gets me, though, is there's like so many of them up on beds, but they won't bite nothing. Even cast up to the bank with a shaky head, or usually in muddy water, they'll just pick up just about anything that goes on their bed. Oh, man, that's a big one. That's a giant.
You got it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Speaking of just getting on a bed, I thought I was hung up. Get out of here. Not a giant.
Wow.
It's a pretty good one. Look at that. That's why you net a fish.
Exactly.
So now you guys seen that video there of the one on the lizard. Let's jump into tournament day. Okay, so the first picture here, this is the red area. And I caught 1 keeper out of here. I caught 1 short. My caught 2 keepers, 1 short, and missed 1 good one. Then he had hooked and had 2 more follow his spinnerbait all the way back to the boat. Now the green area, this is the area later in the day at about 2 p.m. where I caught 1 keeper and another one on a catfish, and I did that on the bladed jig because I seen on the front-facing sonar, and I also seen shad activity on the top of the water, which meant something was chasing them, so that told me to pick up that bladed jig. That's when I started figuring out that that was the feeding bite going on with the bladed jig. Now, the spinnerbait bite, that's what I'm going to get into now. That was a reaction bait. So what I want to talk about here is let's get into the second picture here on tournament day. The red area, that is Gaines Creek. That is where I started out first because that is where I had the most success. So the red, that is where my 1 keeper came from. Now that came on a spinnerbait with a number 4 double Colorado blade with it's a 3/8 ounce. And the biggest thing here is it had a red kicker blade on it. You're going to see that right here. There you go. That's the picture of the spinnerbait. And it had a red kicker blade on it. Now the green, that is my 1 short, and I caught it on a 2K Jigs 1/4 ounce Pro Zone shaky head with a Zoom 6-inch watermelon seed lizard with that chartreuse tail. And then my co-angler, the purple, that is where he caught his 2 keepers on a spinnerbait. And the biggest key there is he had a number 5 Colorado blade on his, and it had the red kicker blade. That was the biggest deal. I'm going to get into why that was a big deal here next. Now, the white, that was my coast missed fish. Those are the ones that he missed and followed up to it. I can't remember exactly which ones I put in there, but that's the missed fish. Now, he was throwing, I started off the day throwing a double Colorado blade, okay? But I was throwing a gold and silver. And then he caught 1, so I picked up the spinnerbait and threw the spinnerbait a little bit. Then he caught a second one, and I was still throwing that spinnerbait and couldn't get bit on it. So I was like, okay, so what's going on here? And I noticed that the first fish he caught, he had a red blade on there, and I was wondering how big a difference that really made. And then he had one when we got out to that main lake of Gaines Creek right there in that little area I'm showing you right there, out of that little cove out towards the main body. that is when I noticed it. And I'm like, okay, so that you know, this is 3 fish now. He just missed another one. It's time for me to switch over. I had just one in my box that had the red kicker blade. I had to change the number 4 Colorado out, but that is what got me my keeper up in there. And I caught it about 10 minutes later. Right after switching over to that, I went over to the next bank right after that, and it was about 5 to 10 minutes. It wasn't too long right after that when I caught that bass. So why did that red kicker blade make a difference? It made a difference because these bass up there, and why did the chatterbait not work? The chatterbait didn't work up there because the shad spawn was the week before, and there wasn't no shad in that area. Well, they wasn't feeding on the shad anyway. You could tell. Usually when they're feeding on shad, the shad are kind of busting, and you can see the activity. So they wasn't feeding on the shad. They were up protecting their fry because they were spawned out. The week before the tournament, I was catching the pre-spawners still. They were not up on the beds. They were not spawning yet. So they were spawned out, and there was a reaction bite. They was protecting their bed, and that red blade allowed them in that dirty water to see that spinnerbait better, and they felt threatened more by that spinnerbait. So that is why the spinnerbait with the red blade works in the dirty water. So remember that. Put that in your notes. I got it in my notes, and I have it in this video as well. That double Colorado blade with the red blade on it, and I'll show you a picture right here. That will give you the double, or that will give you a picture of both the spinnerbaits there, an idea of what you're looking at. They were both white and chartreuse, and just the difference between them, just that little bit of red blade made the difference. So now, right here, actually, before I get into the next spot, I'm going to show you a little, show you all the fish we caught right here. And then there's a little blooper there where my spinnerbait flew off. You can see me. I was checking the line right after getting hung up. And then I don't know what happened. It broke off and it kind of flew out there. You guys can kind of get a little laugh out of that. So
there's one. Big one. Oh, man. I didn't know how big he was. I thought he was a giant. Oh, yeah, I'm like Ike and Ellie up here. Giant! That was right at the boat. That's a giant 14-incher, okay? He smacked it like he was a giant right at the boat, and he ran under the boat, so I just did it. Oh, there's one. Too little. There is one. He ran with it. Nope. Got one. Where's he at? Off the bank just a little bit. All right. It might be that orange blade you've got on there. I'm wondering about that myself. I don't think you need to measure him. Got one. My co-angler's gonna beat me again. Just right off the bank a little bit. Got another one? You're determined to catch another one. I told you, you'd get another good one. Oh! Nope. I just said, oh, because he got away. Just out of the reach of the net. I just checked my line too.
Now we went through there and you've seen the fish that we caught. I didn't get all of my camera. I got mine, and then I got some of my co-anglers, and I got the missed one in there. So now let's go to the third picture here, which is the dam area, which was the green earlier. That is where I caught a 3-pounder, the red dot right there on the bladed jig with the chartreuse and white, and a chartreuse and white Zako or Zako trailer. That's a Gary Yamamoto Zako or Zako, however you want to pronounce it. And then I also caught a catfish, right? I caught a catfish first, and then the next cast actually threw out, and I caught that one. I didn't get that one on GoPro. I had my GoPro shut off since it was later in the day. It was about 2:30, and I was just pretty much frustrated with the day and the way everything was going. But I caught the catfish, and then in the next cast, I hooked another fish, and I was like, oh, I bet it's another dang catfish. I was like, don't worry about getting the net. And then it jumped out of the water right at the boat, and I just boat flipped it and got it in there. So that was kind of an exciting part of the day there. Towards the end of the day, we got a little bit figured out. So now that gets me into the next part of my video here, explaining why the bass were why they was. That is what makes this channel so interesting and different than the other channels. I want to show you guys, not only do I show you where I catch them, but I show you why I caught them there. Yeah, I might have got 96th place, but when you look at it for a team tournament wise, we had around a 13 to 15 pound bag, even with what we'd have had if we'd have got the fish in the boat, and we could have, I would have been more prepared and we'd have stayed up in some areas and thrown that spinnerbait a little more, and we could have found some more fish. But this would get you 13 pounds, and the week before it took 13 pounds in a team tournament, and it was tougher, not as tough as what it was in the BFL. They was biting a lot better. So if you're in a team tournament, guys, this is great information. This is great information anywhere, anytime you're fishing this lake. If you just want to go out and catch fish, this is going to help you do it. If you want to go out and do good in tournaments, this is going to help you do it as well. So, I mean, if you got just that, you're lacking one more spot. That's what I was lacking, was just one more spot like this one. If I had one more spot like this one, I could have done good in the tournament. It's just finding that one more spot. So the first picture here I want to talk about, it was a point with an island. That was the fish I caught later in the day. It was post-spawn. That fish was post-spawn, and it was out feeding on the shad. And post-spawn, they like to pull out on these long points. And it had an island there as well, and you can see it had the deep water close by, and it had the shad present. So it was feeding on the shad. So that's what you want to look for after post-spawn, is a long point, especially in dirty water, clean water. Dirty water, they're not going to go real deep. That fish was just in about 6 to 8 foot of water. So he wasn't out real deep. So they don't go real deep, but they still, I mean, they're probably out there deeper. I just can't catch them in that dirty water out deeper. They usually catch them shallower in the dirtier water. So now the second picture, which is the Gaines Creek area up there. The red, that's the creek beds, or what they call a ditch. You can see right there on the map exactly how it runs off the main river channel, which the main river channel is the yellow out there. And these ditches, that red, it runs up in there. That's the creek beds. These are basically highways for the bass to move up and spawn and move out and feed. These are basically, just kind of picture it like you're going to the grocery store, and these are kind of like your back roads. The yellow is an interstate. The red is basically, you know, your little back roads that get you around town, get you to the store and back, get you to school and back, get you to work and back. That, just picture it that way. That might help you understand bass behavior a little more. And then the blue, these are secondary points. These fish move up here to feed. They move back out. They also move up on these to spawn if it's got the right rock. That's what was going on in this case, except the week before, they were up there feeding, and there was some structure up in there, some laydowns. But I noticed they wasn't on those, so they wasn't feeding up on those. That's where the shad was, and they were ambushing the prey the week before, and they were up spawning the week after. That's why I hate practicing a week before, because it just so much changes in a week, especially in the springtime. Now, the green, that's shallow and a good spawning bank there. That's what made it so good there. So now, lessons learned. Well, I've already mentioned this, but I want to talk about it again because it's in my notes here to talk about. Lessons learned: when bass are protecting eggs in muddy water, you want something that's going to threaten them. I mean, you can go out and you can throw a jig or you can throw a plastic, but you can't cover as much water and you can't see those fish. So the biggest thing I've noticed this time of the year is trying to cover enough water, because I mean, it would take forever to sit there and cover every inch of an area with a jig or a Texas rig, trying to pick these fish off like I had tried to do with the watermelon lizard, which I did pick one off, but that was it. But it's just so difficult to do that. So you want a bigger number 5 or number 4 or number 5 Colorado blade, and you want that orange or red kicker blade on there. And you want that on there for that reaction bite, because they can see that, they feel the vibration, and then that red gets them to see it better and gets that reaction strike out of them, because they're up protecting their beds, their eggs, and their fry. I don't think they'd really hatched out yet. I didn't see no fry really going around, but they were up there protecting the eggs, and they get real aggressive when they're up there protecting their beds, and especially when they feel a big thump and spinnerbait like that, and that red blade helps them just actually commit and eat that spinnerbait. That's where the difference was. I threw that spinnerbait probably 50 cast to his 50 cast, and he had 4 fish compared to my none at that point. Or he had 3. Well, no, he had 3 at that point. 3, caught 2 and missed 1, and then I picked it up 5 minutes later, got the bite, broke it off after that 10 minutes later, and that was it. That's the only bites I got on the spinnerbait, and he still actually caught more on the spinnerbait after that. Well, he missed another one on the spinnerbait after that. And so that was the difference. I was using a gold blade with a silver kicker. That was just it. That was the only difference. And I switched over even to a lighter head, because that's the only one I had with a kicker blade on it. He was throwing a 1/2 ounce, and then I switched over to the 3/8 ounce. So the size didn't really matter. They were still biting that just as good. And then the lesson learned, like I talked about before, was the bladed jig. It's a feeding bite when they're feeding on shad. It's not a real good reaction bite. Maybe if I had that orange blade on that chatterbait, that might have got a reaction bite out of them. But it seems like the chatterbait, so far, what I've learned about it is it's a feeding bite. So hopefully this information helps you guys on Lake Eufaula. Hopefully this will help you guys if you ever have a tournament here and never been here. It'll speed your process up. Maybe you're a guy that's fishing team tournaments there and you're just outside of the cut and can't get inside the check line. Maybe this area right here and the information learned in this video will get you in the check line next. That is what this channel is for. That is why I created it, to give you content that is not available on other channels, guys. This is real live action. What happens in the tournament, how it goes, how I break down, how I make the decisions, and why the bass are there, and exactly where I caught them. Because that is what makes this channel different than any other channel out there on YouTube that I know of. So if you guys would, if you're still watching and you're not a subscriber yet, please become a subscriber. Share it with your friends. Share this information with as many people as possible. Trying to get the channel, trying to get it growing, and get this information out, because this is great content to help other anglers and everybody out there catch more fish. Thank you guys for tuning in.